and let us all do we can to build a better future.
So, you know, we've been covering CNN a little bit, and it's like,
oh no, they're exposed. We do kind of there.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Just before we pull up the article, number one, I remember doing a story on how you had one of the heads of CNN saying, "I want CNN to return back to its journalistic roots, or devolve back to its journalistic roots." Well, when was CNN ever a journalist outlet in the first place? Especially since it's just like a click, copy, paste version of MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, and CBS. Now, if that offends any of the loyal viewers of those corporate media networks, well, too bad, so sad, because as Daniel said it, as we've said it, these pundits are reactors. And then you have a lot of these CNN talking heads, very similar to Fox or MSNBC. A lot of them have done some really shady, downright deplorable things, not covering stories of corruption, political powers of abuse, not really covering the fact that we're dealing with climate change, or even calling out regime change, wars, or even standing in solidarity with fellow investigative journalists that are right now being detained or being exiled. And
instead, my guess is, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, they're going to go, let's take out or let's try and attack an influential comedian to distract.
But it's out of jealousy, though. And remember, folks, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC are all authoritative sources, according to YouTube and other large social media networks. And I just want to say this, Dan. I know that if you or I did even a fraction of what Chris Cuomo did, this network would be destroyed like that. There is no recovery. There's no recovery of any independent media network doing, even if it was a fraction of what Chris Cuomo did.
Can you imagine if it came out that like Kit's like trying to give like Lori Lightfoot advice on how to talk to the youth?
Let's not do that. Let's not do that at all. Let's not I'd rather have, you know what? I don't want to talk to Lori Lightfoot. You know, it's just she's been so hypocritical towards every single thing. It's like, honestly, to have an interview with her, it's just like it would be like your entire administration's been a lie.
Don't make me read a thing, guys. I have to. There's been a corporate speak, and Kit said that he endeavored that he would not talk to, and he technically did not, except he was speaking, and she was in the room listening, but he wasn't talking at her. He was just talking in general around her,
it's
okay. But those bodies got buried.
And then, of course, we do have to mention, too, that now quite recently, a woman who has remained anonymous has stepped forward calling out allegations of abuse by Chris Cuomo at CNN. So chances are, similar to his brother, there's probably might be more women coming forward.
Here's a great slogan for independent media. Independent media. There's not a lot of sexual harassment going on here.
Anyways, continuing on. So here's this article where Joe Rogan is calling out CNN for being effing propagandists. So Joe Rogan weighed in on the Chris Cuomo scandal on his latest podcast and said he views the network as basically effing propagandists. Joe Rogan remarked that there is a market for real news and that it's really hard to find that now. I think CNN... Oh, correction, Joe Rogan. This is where I got to be critical of Joe Rogan. There is independent media, but we're being censored by YouTube.
No. It's there's a lot of independent media. You're just not inviting it on your show. Yeah. Get us an invite, man.
Yeah, true.
I'd love to talk to your audience.
Yeah, Chicago's fastest growing independent. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, there we go. Let's Joe Rogan, have your people call us. Anyways, continue on. I think CNN is realizing that the ratings are dog crap, and that having these highly polarizing editorial personalities like Stelter or Don Lemon, Michael Malice is effing hilarious. You know what he did? He goes, now Chris Cuomo has gone. Who's the alpha male over at CNN? He put up a poll and everyone said Anderson Cooper. I think Anderson Cooper came in first, Rogan said. Maybe this is just my bias. I want the news. I want objective news. I want someone to tell me what are the facts and what's going on. What's happening? I don't want your ideological slant. And what I want is, what this left-wing propaganda network, which is what CNN has become, Rogan said. Now, the thing is,
it's not left-wing. It's like, I don't get, like, corporate. He needs to understand, like, for real, like, people are this is what we try and fight against on the show all the time. Don't buy into the left-right dichotomy. It doesn't really exist. It's just right.
There we go. And the thing is, CNN, left-wing, it's like calling Kamala Harris left-wing.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Pete Buttigieg left-wing. Really? I don't think so.
No, that's a thing that like America as a whole needs to, like, you know, we were having a discussion before about like good versus evil. It's the same idea. It's when you're saying, oh, it's left wing, you're not really saying anything. You're like, oh, that's a color. It's okay.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So the way I look at CNN now is so differently than the way I looked at it at CNN 15, 20 years ago, the host said. I used to look at them as like, this is how I get the news. This is unbiased, professional news. They're going to tell me what's happening in Pakistan, what's happening in, Mogadishu. These are real journalists that are telling me the news. Now I look at them like, you effing propagandists. What are you, the right arm of Pfizer? I think there's a market for real news, and it's really hard to find that now. It's really hard, especially outside of independent sources, Rogan said. So looking at this, I agree with calling out CNN as being a propaganda network. Look, this is the same media network like Fox, like MSNBC, that were saying that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, silencing anyone that was critical of the Bush administration, turning a blind eye to the hypocrisy of the Obama administration, then constantly promoting the propaganda and fear that was Russiagate. And the thing is, now that Trump's gone, a lot of these major media networks they're losing their numbers.
By the way, if you want news, we called this happening back on the radio.
Yeah, and the thing is, now that Trump's gone, or he's going to run again in 2024, they're going to get that extra boost. But that's the only way these corporate media outlets have been relevant, because of Trump, because of his policies, because of the 2016 campaign and everything else that came with it. And now looking at CNN, they're grasping at straws and out of their own jealousy, because they're at talent.
They're dying. They're like a year away from just losing money, which is the worst thing you could do on a news network in America.
Right. And well, there's another thing too, and that is a lot of these networks have been jealous of Joe Rogan with the popularity of his show. And the thing is, they keep on saying that he's right wing, that he's extremist, that he's a Trump supporter when he's not.
And the funniest part is they're so used to thinking we're the biggest by default. Everyone looks up to us. But every time they do it, especially to Joe Rogan, he's just like such a interesting perched person in the systems of hierarchy that we have in this country, that they're yelling at a bigger audience. All they're really saying is, don't watch our show. Don't give us a chance. Stop. Don't even try and select our stuff. We're really bad. Hey, audience that we're pretending doesn't exist, that's actually larger than ours, please pretend that the stuff you're seeing, because it's like a lot of people watch Joe Rogan, a lot of people, like, I might say, and I think I would say, it'd be nice if he had a little more variety of people on his show. And I think it also is up to people on the, again, I hate using the term again, but the left, to stop doing this self-imposed boycott of Joe Rogan. I think a lot of people, they would never get on anyway. But regardless, I still hold this point. Ready? The fact that we're letting a comedian command this much respect says all you need to know about the failed state of media.
Right. Another thing, too, though, is that, if you look at Joe Rogan's previous interviews, he's had people of the left and scientists and other individuals on his show.
He has more scientists on his show. And then it's just, I just wish he had a little more. Again, that's my thing. That's my personal opinion. But it doesn't change anything.
And another thing, too, what I think a lot of the critics of Joe Rogan, especially how CNN has been going after him, is if you want to have a good show, if you want to have a great network, you got to have interesting guests, and you got to spice things up. That's Media 101. And if I have to explain to anyone that's been critical of Joe, well, then guess what? You're not paying attention. That's how anything happens in any kind of show. And the thing is, Joe Rogan is right. We do need to have real media, but we got to break the monopoly of corporate media.
It makes me laugh that CNN is legitimately stoking and continues to stoke conflict with Joe. It just says everything about where they're at. It's like multi-billion-dollar industry that is like essential for the military-industrial complex to operate. One comedian-style dude.
One other thing, too. This channel got hit because I covered a story about how CNN was smearing Joe Rogan, too.
I think this goes back to what I was saying every time we bring up case study, and how I think it's funny that when CNN covers story X, it's, an authoritative source and a good point. When we cover same story in the same, talking about it in the same way that they are, all of a sudden we're propaganda. All that says to me is there's an uneven playing field, and that when CNN says it, it's fine. When we say the same thing, it's not.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, and I think you worded this perfectly when it came down to how Case Study QB's Twitter page is constantly flagged by Twitter by saying that, what you're watching is very suspicious and sensitive material. It might offend.
It might be inaccurate.
And it might offend younger eyes.
But it shows what would happen to all of this content if they weren't propped up.
Yep. again, it's a nightmare situation that we're in. But look, I think Joe Rogan is doing just fine with his show. I think there's a lot of people that are just upset with him because he's been very successful. And I just want to say, if you look at Joe Rogan, doesn't start up one day and just have this great $1 million set. He worked for it and climbed the ranks to get
sponsored by Fleshlight.
Yeah.
Again, so like the point is still, everyone that takes Joe Rogan super seriously is kind of making my point with it. It's like I was saying, I have certain issues that I would like him to do things differently, and that's my opinion. That doesn't really matter. But the fact that CNN is going after Joe Rogan, I just think summarizes everything perfectly about where they are.
Agreed. So there you go. We need independent media, and I just want to end this segment with a final note. Look, I said on the show, I want to see more citizen journalists all across this country building up independent media. And I know it seems like it's a heavy task to do, but we need to do it because you're not going to get it from CNN or Fox or MSNBC. So we need citizen journalists.
You will get it from those reactors. We're going to try and actually do commentary that's truthful.
Agreed.